For my Hot Bananas episode, I'll be exploring how gentrification affects the working class. Covering topics such as cultural appropriation, reselling, and how the working class are treated by those in positions of power, I'll be doing a deep dive into a slightly darker corner of fashion history.
If not, aim at next. Where a homie's top, make a nigga lost. I just broke my wrist. Yeah, I fucked your bitch.
The resurgence of Y2K fashion recently has been made apparent by TikTok, but back in the day when items like juicy couture tracksuits, huge sunglasses and rhinestones were at the height of their popularity, they were introduced by black women. While it's usually the likes of Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian and Britney Spears that get credited with a lot of early 2000s fashion trends, it's black women who were the blueprint.
Rapping on this shit, grinding never stops. She riding on this top, she pull up with the Glock. She pull up with the Glock.
Logomania is one of the trends at the forefront of 2000s fashion, particularly the Louis Vuitton and Gucci logos. While it is true that pieces such as the Louis Vuitton Keeple were worn by the likes of Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton, Logomania was co-opted by Daniel Day, more commonly known as Dapper Dan. Day screen printed these logos onto products, thus making them much more accessible. The pieces were bought by Black Americans in Harlem, New York, who went on to popularize the style, therefore leading to many more types of people appreciating it without recognizing the origin of the trend. The problem with Lindsay and Paris being seen as pioneers of Y2K fashion is not only that this is false. Both of these tabloid targets have been accused of racism on multiple occasions. Due to most of these fashion fads being conceived by black men and women, an increase in cultural appropriation has occurred. Lack of attribution towards people of colour is not exclusive to the recent Y2K revival, but is certainly more possible now due to social media algorithms consistently allowing problematic white people to have larger platforms than their counterparts from minority ethnic groups. This is only emphasised when white creators are given credit for styles that they did not pioneer. As the Y2K resurgence continues, so does the refusal to credit black creators. While this is probably out of ignorance rather than ill intent, it is still a problem that should be addressed. This issue spans way beyond Y2K. It includes streetwear, braided hairstyles, and athleisure. We, as consumers of trends brought about by black people, need to start crediting them as style inspirations and acknowledge their legacy. Many movements in fashion have been inspired by the working class. To quote trend forecaster Andrew Leweke, high fashion is obsessed with authenticity. The struggles faced by those on a lower income are often romanticised due to the fact that they are the epitome of authenticity to those who are shrouded by wealth. This is why fashion designers and wealthy consumers alike tend to seek inspiration from the working class. The counterfeit Burberry incident, which came at the peak of the plaid print's popularity, epitomised the attitude that fashion houses had towards the working class. Genuine Burberry items, printed with the signature Nova check, were once sold on Bow Road in East London, allowing people access to designer garments that they most likely wouldn't have had access to beforehand. This soon led to a counterfeit culture within the UK. As you can guess, this devalued the signature Burberry print, as the upper classes didn't want to be seen wearing items worn by common people. Fashion historian Ollie Evans recounts that prior to the baseball cap epidemic, as he calls it, the Burberry check was really quite fashionable with creatives and those with their finger on the pulse in London. Not long after, Daniela Westbrook and her baby were photographed wearing full Nova check outfits, complete with matching stroller. Due to Westbrook's role in EastEnders and her scandalous cocaine abuse, the Burberry print had now been tarnished and branded as trashy.
Pull up with the Glock.
The 80s and 90s casuals, traditionally men who embraced terrace fashion, is another example of gentrification within the fashion industry. The long-standing look of a football fan from the UK is simple. Jeans, most likely boot cut, any pair of sneakers, a polo shirt, and a branded sportswear jacket, alongside some Italian outerwear and accessories. The reason why the casuals adopted this look was so that they could engage in their usual behaviours of degeneracy without being followed by the police. Brands that were staples of this era include Kappa, Adidas, and Stone Island, the latter of which has been more recently adopted by Drake, as he continues to take influence from English subcultures within his music, a stark contrast to his past R&B albums. The casual style has since provided many high fashion brands with inspiration, primarily the comeback of two-piece shell suits. This style has been repurposed by Gosha Rubchinsky in his Spring-Summer 2016 collection, with a Soviet-era spin worked into the designs. In March of 2021, streetwear brand Palace revealed their collaboration with Stella Artois. Stella's reputation has been pretty rocky, with the drink being branded as Wife Beater. This is reaffirmed in their slogan, Stella's for the fellas who take their lager strong, which has since been dropped. It's been seen as a favourite lager among the lower classes for a while now, and the items from this Palace collection are gaudy, and most likely if they were released by another brand such as Primark, which had less of an association with expensive and exclusive items, I believe that this would be regarded as tacky. This is, in my opinion, an attempt at appealing to middle-class men who may be hiding their social class beneath their passion for streetwear. As the name suggests, street style arose from what people in cities were wearing, and oftentimes these areas were not as developed, therefore people had to get creative with their clothing. Once the upper and middle classes caught on to the grittiness and authenticity, they began to replicate the style of the people living in cities. High fashion brands are renowned for borrowing elements of cultures that are not their own, and the working class culture is no exception. When this becomes an issue is when these high fashion brands refuse to give back or acknowledge where they got their inspiration from. These trousers were bought secondhand from Depop and cost me half as much as they would if I'd bought them from Urban Outfitters directly. Clearly, this is one of the positive aspects of the secondhand selling apps and websites that came about in the past 2 decades or so. The obvious benefits of Depop and its competitors are that pre-loved clothing items can be sold for more affordable prices, reducing the amount that people spend on fast fashion. This means that the apps allow people to be a lot more sustainable in their choices. There is, however, a negative association with Depop's exclusivity culture. Recently, Brandy Melville has become the topic of conversation when it comes to reselling culture. The brand, which is marketed towards teenage girls, has clothing items that retail for between £12 and £40 on average. However, Depop users have been charging upwards of £100 for these items. Brandy Melville has a loyal market of teen girls whose style fits under the preppy bracket, and this is only proven by the bidding wars that occur in Depop comments over dresses, skirts, and more. Why are Depop resellers able to get away with this? The reason behind it is simply supply and demand. While the coveted it girl aesthetic has changed throughout the years, the cutesy and feminine elements of Brandy Melville's clothing work alongside many different aesthetics. Additionally, as Brandy Melville's clothing lines are released for one season only, there is an element of urgency regarding the purchase of these clothes via second-hand online retailers. Some will be thinking, how does this even link into gentrification? How does an app become gentrified? To explain this, we need to look at the traditional meaning of gentrification, in which a poor urban area is overtaken and changed by the rich, who then raise the prices of property. Digital gentrification is a problem, but the common enemy is not necessarily the middle classes reselling items. The existence of thrift flipping, while it can have negative implications for charity shops, does help people to survive financially by giving them another revenue stream. It is, after all, the obligation of these charity shops to provide clothing. The true enemy is the CEOs of fast fashion brands, whose wealth has been accumulated and hoarded. When looking at wealth distribution within the US, it's clear to see that the 1% are living in luxury while the rest of society are barely keeping afloat. Furthermore, the practices of fast fashion companies are often very unethical, with the use of sweatshops and horrifically low wages for workers.
You wanna be on my wish, your bitch come back to crib, sipping it and I dip. People hate on me, people put me down.
The fashion industry has been rife with gentrification for years now. Yet it is only recently that we as consumers have been made more aware of it, most likely due to this information being much more accessible on the internet. Sources such as the website Diet Prada and its accompanying Instagram page are constantly calling out designers, photographers, and other creatives for inappropriate use of cultural heritage that is not theirs. When it comes to crediting trailblazers of the fashion industry, no matter their background, social status, or religion, both designers and celebrities alike need to acknowledge the influence behind their garments, style, or concepts. To conclude, gentrification in the fashion industry does not have an overnight fix. But with the effort in the right direction, it is plausible that one day we will cultivate a fashion industry that doesn't rely on appropriation for new and exciting ventures. Thank you for listening.